Hello friends, I'm Kaylyn and welcome to the BUgirl channel. We are beginning the Women of the Bible study series today with a woman named Esther. If you want to read the entire story, it can be found, surprisingly enough, in the book of Esther in the Bible. The book is only 10 chapters long, so it doesn't take that long to read. But today I'm going to tell you her story really quickly, and then we're going to talk about 3 things that we can learn from Esther. As we go through this, keep in mind that Esther's story is all about following God's plan. Okay, let's do this. In this time, there was a king named King Xerxes. He was pretty proud of all of the things that he had, so he held a very expensive and very lavish party to show off all of his kingdom's wealth to his advisors and his officials. And this party lasted, are you ready for it? 180 days. 180 days. That is too long of a party for me. When that time was over, he then held a 7-day banquet because apparently the 180-day party wasn't enough. He held this banquet for all of the residents of Susa, so that meant rich and poor alike. At this banquet, he proceeded to drink a lot of wine, and then he demanded that his wife, Queen Vashti, come before all of his guests just to show them how beautiful she was. But she refused, and he became extremely angry with her over this, and he legit permanently banned her from his sight. Then King Xerxes needed to find a new wife. There was a call for all of the young and beautiful women of the land to be sent to the king's palace. Esther, a young Jewish girl, was one of these women. She was brought to the king's palace by her uncle Mordecai. Long story short, the king ended up falling more in love with Esther than he did with any of the other women, and he made her queen. But she kept the fact that she was a Jew hidden. A while later, there was a man named Haman who worked for the king as the highest ranking official in the government. He was pretty full of himself, and he made everyone bow to him to honor him. But Mordecai, Esther's uncle, refused. This made Haman so angry that he devised a plan to eliminate all of the Jewish people in the land, especially Mordecai. He went to King Xerxes and made up a lie about the Jewish people, and even said that he would pay out of his own pocket to have them destroyed. And the king agreed. Esther heard about this and was absolutely stunned. She knew she had to do something, but she didn't know what she could do. In that time, there was a rule that no one could approach the king without being invited. And if you did, you died. The one exception was that if the king extended his golden scepter, that person could live. Because of this, Esther was obviously really scared to go speak to the king. It had been 30 days since the king had invited her to come to him. But Mordecai encouraged her to be brave. He said, "Who knows? Maybe you were made queen for just such a time as this." Maybe God had specifically placed Esther where she was, so that when the time came, she could be bold and brave and save her people. Esther said, "I will go to the king, even if it's forbidden. If I die, I die." 3 days later, Esther dressed in her royal robes, and she went to the inner court of the palace in front of the king's throne room. The king was on his throne facing the entrance. When he noticed Esther, he was happy to see her, and he extended his golden scepter to her. The king asked, "What's your desire, Queen Esther? What do you want? Ask and it's yours, even if it's half of my kingdom." "If it please the king," said Esther, "let the king come with Haman to a dinner that I've prepared for him." "Get Haman at once," said the king, "so we can go to dinner with Esther." So the king and Haman joined Esther at the dinner that she had arranged. As they were drinking the wine, the king asked, "Now what is it you want? Half of my kingdom isn't too much to ask. Just ask." All of us probably know what we think is going to happen next. Esther is going to ask for her people to be saved right then and there, right? Easy peasy. The king said that she could ask for anything that she wanted and he would give it to her. But Esther answered, "Here's what I want. For the king and Haman to come again to a dinner that I will prepare tomorrow. Then I will give a straight answer to the king's question." What? Why would she wait? Why wouldn't she just ask her question right then and there? Well, just like before, Esther was bold and brave, only in a different way this time. She listened to God's prompting of when to speak up and when to wait. This was a time to wait. In listening to God's timing and waiting until the next day when the king and Haman would come for dinner again, Esther actually saved her people and her uncle Mordecai. And she got rid of the man who hated Mordecai and hated the Jews and was so eager for their destruction, Haman. Make sure you go and read the book of Esther so you can get the full story. Now that you've heard her story, here are 3 things that we can learn from Esther. Number 1, God has a plan for our lives. Throughout Esther's story, we see that God had a very specific and purposeful plan for her. She was made queen and put in a powerful position so that she could save her people. But she didn't end up there by accident or by her own doing. While it might not look the same for us today, we need to have the same assurance that God has a plan for us and that He does not make mistakes. He purposely places us in different situations. We're not a fraud and we are good enough. Listen to God and accept what He's calling you to. Number 2, be bold and brave in God's calling. Sometimes the situations that God calls us to aren't the comfortable or easy things to do. There will be things that God calls us to that are completely outside of our comfort zones. It took guts for Esther to go speak to the king when it could have cost her her life, but she trusted God. Number 3, listen to God's timing. We have to be willing to wait for God's timing even when it doesn't seem to make sense. I'm sure when Esther hosted that first dinner that she was bursting with nervousness and anticipation to save her people, and honestly, she probably just wanted to get it over with. But she sensed that God was calling her to wait. As a direct result of this waiting, Esther's uncle Mordecai was saved and Haman was taken care of. I can tell you with 100% certainty that God's timing and plans are way better than anything we could dream of on our own. That is all for this week, friends. Be bold and brave in your faith and listen to the amazing plan that God has for your life.